All right, so today was a solid day. Confidence was back. Um, really focused on the 5 minute time frame with the first candle to close over the 9 SMA or break above it. Um, Obviously, needed structure there for the entry to be valid, but really focused on um, just getting in early. I did miss a trade on IVVD, just because I was a little sketched out about it. I can actually I'll go through that right now, because I didn't take a trade on it. But I was watching this thing from 150 all the way up, and I never took an entry, and it was extremely frustrating. But it is what it is. So. You know what? I did take a trade in my Roth in this. I took a trade here on the second leg. But I was watching this here. And on the daily, this was a nice little bounce play here. Just a nice push, pull back to the 200 and the 20 SMAs, and then a pop through today. 4 hour was nice. It just popped right through with volume. And then the 30-minute, really nice little bull flag here. 30-minute bull flag. Now, I was watching this here as it was bouncing off the 200 SMA. And I was thinking to myself, this could hold the 200 and then just continue to push higher. I didn't recognize the Twin Towers, which I wish I did, because I probably would have started accumulating some in the 150s and then added at the break of the high of day, just because of the conviction. But I flubbed this pretty significantly. So I was watching this in here, and I was watching this break right here. So it closed over, pulled back to VWAP, and it broke over with some decent volume. Not substantial, but it was above the 5-period average. Pulled back to VWAP, held VWAP, then closed over the 9 SMA a second time. And typically what I find is that on the 5-minute time frame, if you get that pullback, the second close, if it closes on the next or within the next several candles right above the 9 SMA, that is typically the break. That is the confirmation of the trend that I'm looking for. So I was looking at this 150 break, because this was holding the high of this candle was 150. I was looking at that break, and I just didn't take it. And I mean, hindsight, I wish I did, but I was skeptical because the point of control was above. It was sitting right here at 154, and I said, you know what? I'll just wait. I don't want to get caught, buy early, and then it pushed to 154. Maybe I scale half, and then it pulls and flushes, and I sit on a loser. So I said, you know what? I'll just wait until it moves up to high of day. It pushed to high of day, and then at that point I was like, I would really like to see a pullback on this thing. I mean, it kind of just grinded higher with no real... Actually, no, I lied. It had this beautiful contraction here, which I missed. I fully missed it. Pushed higher, really nice 25-cent move from the initial 150 break that I was looking at up to 175. But again, I missed it. So I was watching this pullback here, and I entered at the exact perfect time. Could not have asked for a better entry. The only thing I wish was I sized up more. Now, I was watching this 167 base right here. This 167 base right here, where we had the high here, top, and then topped. And it looked like it was, I mean, we were getting some volume in. It looked like it bottomed here. We formed a higher low at 161, held this base low right here, popped up, and then pushed. And I slapped 168 as the buyers broke through that 167 wall, slapped 168, got a decent fill, and then I scaled half just sub of high of day. I let the rest run. I was looking at this and I was going to add back right here on this nice little 1 minute cup and handle, but I was focused on a different ticker, and at that point I just set a stop loss at, I believe, like 168. I think I set it at my entry, and then I looked away and I had it on a side screen, on a side chart, and I saw it push again for a second leg, and I pulled it up and I just started to scale out. I scaled out sub 2, and I thought to myself, I mean, I should hold lottos here. I should just hold 100 shares just to see if this could push through 2, which it ended up doing. But at that point, it kind of tapped 2, and then, it was stalling here, pulled back, and then stalled. And I just said, you know what? If it pushes a couple more cents through 2, I assume that it would probably hit 203, 204, 205 maybe, and then pull back there, which it ended up doing. It kind of hit 210 and then pulled back from there. But I really should have held the lottos. Either way, solid trade on this. And on the 5 minute, what I was watching was this it was the perfect break right there. And then this break right here. And it could not have lined up better. We had this 167 base. It closed. It soaked again. Next candle, beautiful hammer. And then the next candle, it just blew right through. Slight pullback and then blew right through in the 5 minute. And I held through this pullback, saying to myself, okay, it's holding the 9 SMA. Stay patient. Stay patient. And I did. And it worked in my favor. So, phenomenal trade. Really stoked about that trade. I again, hindsight, I wish I bought down here and just let it ride, but you know, it is what it is. So that was just a great trade on IVV day. Within my trading account, I traded 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tickers today, for a total of 325.72. So a decent green day. I mean, nothing that's life changing, but it was a nice confidence booster today. I needed a nice green day like this to make me feel confident in my edge and my abilities, because this month has been extremely tough, and I'm not really sure what had happened that. I've been trying to evaluate what type of life changes. I mean, it may have been that I have the baby on the way within the next 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, and that could be it. You know, coming to the realization that I have the second kid on the way and it's actually here. So a second mouth to feed, or a third mouth to feed my wife and the 2 babies now. So it may have been that, and I just got in my head about it. But I just lost track of how to trade. I couldn't figure out how to trade. I had one of the worst months that I've had in a very long time thus far. And it's not necessarily from a dollar amount perspective. It is a red month, but it's not the worst loss that I've ever had in a month, and it's not really that close. It's reboundable. I could certainly rebound this pretty quickly next week, but today was a nice chop into that red month. So ABVC, this was just a nice push with a sideways consolidation at the point of control. And if we look at the 4 hour, I'll pull it up here and then bring it down. Maximize sell. So on my 4 hour charts, I use what I call a dominant candle point of control, and that's just based off a specific criteria that I've compiled. This was clearly the dominant candle, which, if we look at the daily, was this candle here. So the initial morning candle, that 9 a.m. candle in the 4 hour, had that volume, had significant range, and the point of control for that was about 67. It pushed through that and held above that. the entire afternoon. So I thought to myself, okay, this may actually continue to grind higher, especially with small caps really moving today, driven primarily from MLGO, which I did not trade at all, unfortunately. So I thought to myself, okay, this may push through 70 and a half. Volume was drying up. We had this nice green candle here with a ton of volume. Spinning top, but it held within that body, and price stayed above the point of control the entire day for the most part in the afternoon. So I took a starter down here at 69, risking just sub 68, so like 67.50, 67.75, somewhere in there. And then I added another 1,000 shares, thinking, okay, this may. I want to have a nice starter. I don't want to get stuck with 1,000 shares, it push, and then I don't feel comfortable adding to the position. So I added another 1,000 shares, saying, okay, I'm willing to risk this pulling back to sub 68, and I end up losing $30, 35, $40, something like that. So I added the additional 1,000 shares. I got a pretty solid fill. I got 69.5. So I got the bottom of this candle right here, and then as it just felt pretty weak up here, and I didn't like. I believe it was on the 1 minute. Yeah, it started. The 9 SMA started to trend bearishly, and I thought to myself, I don't really like this. We got this seller right here that sold however many shares that is, 3,000 shares or so, in this candle right here, and I just didn't like that it got sold off a little bit. So I said, you know what, rather than watching this continue to sell off, I'll just sell it, and then I'll cut the position, and then I'll just add once I finally have confirmation of trend where it breaks 70 and a half. I'll just add it 71 or so. So I cut it, got a great fill, ended up with a $13 win on that. So I do think from a daily perspective, this may actually see continuation on Monday. It looks like this ticker wants 88 and potentially higher. And we've been getting nice moves like this where you get this massive push with a huge upper wick, and then it just continues to grind higher. I mean, you had Rebin, where you had this massive upper wick on this candle and this candle. It pulls back and then it pushes back through that high. Today we had Farm, which I traded today. Nice winner. That's actually my next ticker, so I'll go through that right now. But yeah, just these nice moves where you get this push with a nice upper wick. It pulls back, holds the 9 SMA or some relative price level. It held the high, the prior highs, prior to earnings coming out, and then just pushed straight back through. I can see this continuing to go higher on Monday. I'm going to continue to watch it, but this was a really nice push. Excuse me. I traded it yesterday. I traded it today. I wish I took more size with it today. But this was just a really nice push. So I was watching this in the morning, and I took a small position in the morning. I recognized the upper wick, and this candle, the entire candle stayed within the wick. It barely breached the body of the initial opening range candle and then pushed higher. I bought 281.5. So if we look at the 1 minute, I was buying in here for that break of high of day. So I was watching to see where this broke above the 9 SMA on the 5 minute, and saw the push, watched the pullback, and then I was waiting I saw this bounce, and I said to myself, I don't know, I'd rather get confirmation, and and I'll wait to buy the break of this candle high. And then it pulled back more and on light volume, which I probably in hindsight could have taken a starter here, risking the low of this candle. So taking a starter, say 272, 273, and then risked sub 270, so 269, or even low of day, 265 or 264, 263, something like that. But I wanted to wait for confirmation. It popped. I didn't get an entry here, and I think that's because it just gapped, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it just gapped with some pretty solid volume. So the volume came in on this candle here, and then it gapped almost 5 cents. And then I was looking to see if we could get a pullback, a deeper pullback, but it never came. So I ended up just buying up in here, and I bought 500 shares thinking I'll add once it breaks high of day. It pushed through, then pulled back, and it held relatively well. It held the 20 SMA, but it held the 9 SMA relatively well. And then it pushed. And if we look at the 5 minute, the 5 minute just held the 9 SMA beautifully on the 5 minute. So I started scaling. I was looking for 3, and I scaled half at 297. I wanted to get just sub 3, just in case it didn't fully tap 3, which it didn't. It hit a high 298, so I had a great fill, or a great limit order. And then it pulled back, and it held the 9 SMA, and I said, just stay patient. If this pulls back to 283, maybe we start to add back, and we get a full size. Then we go 1,000 shares, maybe even 2,000 shares as a total position. But it didn't pull back that far. It ended up breaching and breaking down here, the 9 SMA, and I just cut it. I said, you know what? I can always add this back once it breaks above, which it did here, and I didn't add at 293. I ended up looking for the push. I wanted more confirmation, so I was looking to get that break of high of day before re-entering. Hindsight, I probably should have added here and then scaled half at high of day, but that's not what I did. So I took a small starter, 200 shares, just because I wasn't confident in it. I saw volume start to come in, but on the 1 minute, I think it was spread out, and it wasn't like one swift push. Yeah, so what had happened was I saw this push, and it pulled back and formed a spinning top, and I was like, you know what? Let me just slap this right here, see if I get a decent fill, which I got 297.5. So I did get a decent fill. I got somewhere around here. And then I was watching it hold the 9 SMA. It just didn't hold the 9 SMA, and I cut it. And I ended up having a small loss on that. $1, not even $1. So then I kept this on my radar because, the amount of volume that was coming in was just, it was really nice. Yeah, solid volume, a lot of buying pressure. This thing was holding the 9 SMA on the 30 minute, and it was holding above the point of control for majority of the day. So I was looking here as it kind of formed this ascending triangle here. This little ascending triangle. And I bought the break after this hammer candle. I said, all right, we're holding the 9 SMA relatively well. I'm looking to get the first break / close above the 9 SMA. So I ended up getting pretty crappy fill. I bought 299, and then it started to pull back. It just couldn't break 301. I think the high was 301 here, 301. It couldn't break, and I cut it for a small loss. But I kept it on my radar. I was very, very forceful with myself in being disciplined, making sure that with these leaders, I'm not letting them off of my radar. And even though it may have broken down and didn't go in my favor, and it broke down right here a little bit, it only broke down to VWAP and got soaked. And it wasn't on that big of volume. 30,000 shares or so, but still lighter relatively speaking, versus the buyers that had bought this up to get it to this price. So I'd watched this, and then I was thinking to myself, maybe I should take a starter here as it closes above. It breaks above this candle high and then closes above the 9 SMA here. But I wanted to wait. I was waiting for that 301 break. I said, you know what? I tried this a couple of times to get the high of day break, and it just didn't come. So let me just stay patient. I'll wait for 301 to break, and I ended up slapping 1,000 shares, which was just a solid trade, just a super, super solid trade. So I slapped 301. I think it was at 302, and I got a decent fill. And then I just started to scale. I made sure, I told myself, I don't want to just start cutting this at 305. I want to wait to see if this can push to 310 or so. So I set a limit for 500 shares for half at 308. That got hit. And then it kind of stalled here, and I didn't like how it was stalling. So I started to scale out of more during this kind of just chop here. This increasing chop. And it was 250, excuse me. So I started to scale out more. I didn't like, I wanted more of like a violent push. And if we look at the 5-minute, volume was coming in pretty strong, but it wasn't as strong as the morning. And I said, you know what, I don't think that, I would have liked to have seen a bigger push of volume and a stronger push thereafter with continuation. I wanted to see more volume come in than the 75,000 share block that came in earlier in the morning. And it just didn't come. So I held 200 shares, said, let's see if this can continue to push. I'll hold 200 shares to see if it can. And it didn't, and I ended up cutting it at 304. So still a gain, but I would have liked to have seen this push higher. Either way, solid trade, $100 on the trade. So I'm really happy with that. Ideally, I would have hit 2,000 shares down here. That would have been ideal. And then just held throughout and then added, as I did here, back to full size and just scaled as it didn't work. But had my stops sub this support level. That was the prior resistance at 283 from the price level on the daily. Right there, that high of day. I think this continued to push. This can continue to push on Monday, but we'll see. So that was farm. NAS, whatever you want to call it. This was just a gabbing crap. Ended up getting a decent winner on it, which was pretty solid. So I saw this earlier in the morning and I was watching this. This was, I think, the top gapper, other than Malgo, but this was the second biggest gapper. And it pushed at 6:30, and I was hoping that it would wait until 7 because it had a really nice structure. It just had this really nice structure right here. And then I was watching this push right here. It just bounced really nicely off the 9 SMA on the 5-minute. Pulled back here, pushed back up, pulled back here. And then at 7:20, within that 7:20 candle, I bought at 263. So I bought a little higher than I would have liked. And I don't remember why I waited so long. But I bought 500 shares at 263. So up here, scaled out of some. Let's go into the 1 minute. I don't remember why I bought so high. Looking back now, I should have bought right at that prior candle high break. So, okay, that's what it was. So I was waiting. So 256, I think, was the prior candle high. Yeah, 256 right here. Because that's the prior. So 256 was the prior candle high. So I probably should have bought here on this candle, but I think I was waiting for a little bit of a pullback, and I didn't feel comfortable buying there. and then I slapped 263 as this pushed away, and I hit it too early or too late, and I got a crappy fill. But this was a nice soak off the prior high of day, or pre-market high, excuse me. So you got this beautiful hammer candle, and then in hindsight, seeing these three in a row, I probably should have just bought here at this break above. But again, I just wanted more confirmation. This pushed nicely, scaled 100 shares after a couple bucks within this candle. I held on this pullback, and I remember thinking to myself, I don't like that this is pulling back, but I'm going to stay patient and let this go down to 255, 256, 255 before I cut it. And it ended up going back up, and I scaled some more, and then I held 200 shares just to see if this could push back to 285. And as it kind of failed here, I scaled out another 100 shares at 269, and then once it broke down below the 9 SMA on the 1 minute, I cut the rest. And if we look at the 5 minute, that's where it basically started to break down and break below the 9 SMA on the 5 minute. So I had a couple bucks profit on this one, and then right here, I took small size as it was breaking out of this downtrend right here, and I've been really trying to get better and feel more comfortable with trading the open, and I was watching this red to green, and I saw this hammer candle at the 1 minute opening range candle, and I said, okay, buyers came in, they're pretty strong. I'm going to see if this pulls back after VWAP, and I'll give it to, say, 204, 205 area, so below this support level. So I bought here at 222, and it just kept pulling back. But I stayed patient. I said, you know what, I'm just going to buy 200 shares, see what happens. I don't want to buy 1,000 and then get stuck with this just flushing on me. So I'll buy 200 shares, see if it holds. I was down, I think, 20 bucks. Yeah, 20 bucks. So I was okay with that. It then pulled back again here and held. And I said, oh, all right, this may now make a move. And I was going to buy 800 shares here for 1,000 shares total position for the break of VWAP, but before I could hit it, I hesitated, and then it just started to push, and before I knew it, it was at VWAP. So I scaled out at 231. I scaled out of half at VWAP, and then I watched it just continue to push, and I saw this fail, and as soon as this candle closed, I cut it at 237. So I didn't like that this had all this volume, this selling pressure on the 1 minute, so I just cut it, and worked out in my favor. Solid trade here. Need to feel more comfortable with buying this break. I mean, the problem is in the opening sequence of every day, there's just the hyper scalpers are just, the micro scalpers just make it so whippy that it's hard to really get a feel. And then when you do get a feel, like, you have to be on the money so quickly, ready to just pull the trigger, that there's no hesitation. You cannot hesitate. And I don't feel comfortable in those types of trades. That's why I don't really take them. But I'm trying to feel more comfortable in them. So taking small size, it's working in my favor. Need to do a better job of tracking these trades instead of just mentally tracking them. I need to physically track them in a spreadsheet of, okay, this is the trade that I took in the morning at the open. This is my success rate. This was the type of trade. This was the success rate, so on and so forth, to really see that, what my statistics are in terms of success, because I am starting to feel a lot more comfortable with these opening trades. But this one didn't go in my favor. I did like the 30 minute I remember seeing this bounce right off of the 9 SMA here and hold it on the 30 minute. And then here, if we look, I bought that 222. So I bought as it was trying to bounce off of the 9 SMA here on the 30 minute, but it couldn't. It pulled back slightly down to 213, I think it was. So about here, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to risk the low of this candle, this prior 30-minute candle, and see if this has some juice. And it ended up pushing, and I made a couple bucks on it. So overall, nice trade. Small size, so get what I give. Next is NKGN. This was also a pre-market play, as well as an open play. This was a nice trade in that it had this really nice pennant structure holding the 200 SMA on the 30 minute. And if we go into the 5 minute, it was a bit choppy. I took a starter here and I ended up getting out for the exact same price, break even. Like literally break even, which was pretty sweet. Didn't feel like it had it, although structure was there. It looked great from a pennant perspective. And the 9 SMA was starting to curl through. It just felt weak. I didn't like that there wasn't much volume coming in here, increasing volume as it was kind of forming a higher low and bouncing off of this trend line support for the pennant. So I just cut it and said, you know what, I'll just wait for the VWAP break or the downtrend break. And I also don't really like trading this close to open. If I'm holding a position from, say, I like 7:15, 7:30 through, say, 9 o'clock. And then once 9 o'clock hits, I typically don't really like to trade. And if I do, I take extremely small size. I took $600 on this, so extremely small size. So then after that, it opened and it started to push through this downtrend resistance on this pennant formation. And it held the low, I think, to the penny. Low was 51.08, 51.02, 51.06, 51.14. Yeah, so 51 was the clear support here. So I was watching as it held 51. I said, all right, hindsight, I should have bought here as it held 51, or even within this candle, risking below 51. But I don't think I was watching this as astutely at that time. So I saw it push up and I bought this pullback at 57. So I bought here at this pullback and it pulled back a little lower, held the 50, held the 50 again, and then right here where it broke above this prior candle, I bought more. And then it flushed. And I just cut it. Small loss. So I was actually red on it at that time. And I think it was like $20, $30, something like that. I was a little frustrated. Yeah, what did I have? A 58. Yeah, it was like $30, $35. So I was a little frustrated, but I said, you know what? It's holding. It's forming a higher low. Let's stay patient. Let's see if this can push through. And it ended up pushing through right here. And I saw the volume start to come in, and I bought after this broke and closed above the 9 SMA, closed above the 9 SMA, and then closed above the 9 SMA with a little bit more volume. The volume came in here, and I slammed 2,500 shares. I scaled out really quickly just because I was a little hesitant with it, with being red on it already. I didn't want to go deeper red. So I scaled out to give myself a little bit of a cushion, and then as it just kept soaking right off of VWAP, well, it soaked here, and I held, and then it did. Oh, this is the 1 minute. It started to push, and then it pulled back, and I don't know why I hesitated, and I just cut it. Clearly should not have, but I sold the remaining shares there. Should have stayed patient as it held VWAP. And once I did it, I said to myself, what are you doing? What are you doing? There was no reason for you to cut it. You held through this pullback to VWAP. This didn't get there. It was really, really quick. It wasn't like a slow grind down and then a push through. It was really just swift. And I think that caught me off guard, and that's why I cut it. But it was irrational, and I should not have cut it. I should have held, stayed patient, through until entry, which was right here at 58.24. So right here, should have stayed patient and waited for break even and then cut it, but I didn't. Overall, small green. Could have been a little bit of a nicer trade if I would have held it to try and get to that pre-market high, and then cut it at pre-market high. But I hesitated, and you know, it just didn't work out. So, volume was strong. Volume was really there. It was really strong right here. So that should have been my indication to just say, listen, dude, stay patient. This has a lot of buyers. And unless you're seeing strong selling pressure, which you didn't get until later when it hit the high of day, this was just a beautiful move. Right after this hammer candle, it just blasted through. And that was I think the break. Yeah, 58. I bought 58.24. I bought the break of this prior candle high on the 5 minute, and that was my entry. So just a phenomenal trade on this one. A phenomenal entry, but poor execution on the exits. I held the 9 SMA beautifully all the way through. I could have got a nice push. Could have taken another. If I would have held the 1,000 shares, I could have taken another $100 out of this thing, up to high of day. But is what it is. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Just learn from it, grow from it, do better next time. So that was in NKGN. SLRN was one of my 3 losers for today. SLRN was something I just took at the end of the day. I was watching this through this consolidation here. I had saw this popped up on my scanner earlier in the afternoon, and this is just a beautiful day. Just a beautiful gap up, pull back, and then push throughout the rest of the day. This thing wants to fill this gap at 338 or whatever this level is. 338. So I'm definitely going to keep this on my watch list for the week, for next week. So the 30 minute was nice. Pulled back, held these lows here on the 30 minute within pre-market, and then during the day, regular market hours. So there must have been news yesterday and after hours. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They want to get a merger. Okay. So it's potential merger news. So, saw this pullback and said, okay, this has some strength. I watched it move sideways here along the point of control on the 5 minute. And I was hesitant to buy it. I was going to keep watching it. I was going to put it on a side chart and keep it on my radar to see if it could just break above that contraction. But I typically, when I see contractions like that, I typically try and stay away, just because I don't like how tight they are for that long of a period of time. I don't know why it kind of just sketches me out, but anyway, that move, it moved really nicely thereafter. So starting here at this 155 candle just before 2 o'clock, it started to push higher, and it held the 9 SMA on the 5 minute perfectly the entire day. So I saw this push through high of day. Through the pre-market high, and I was going to take the high of day break right here. Well, initially it was here at 256, and I don't, for whatever reason, I didn't take it there. And then I was watching the 1 minute. saw this push. I slapped it on the pullback, and it was primarily driven by the 1 minute. I liked that the 9 SMA was holding on the 5, and I saw this pullback, and it was holding 261 really nicely. So once it broke through back through 262, I hit it. So I got 262.5 with 1,000 shares, thinking that okay, maybe this stalls here sideways along the 9 SMA and then pushes higher, kind of like right here, where it pulled back, held this level, this 257, pushed up, moved sideways, tightened, and then pushed higher. I thought we could get one of those types of moves right here again, but it just didn't happen. It pulled back, and I said, you know what, just stay patient. This is give this to sub 260. If it holds 260, we'll stay in it. If it doesn't hold 260, then we'll get out. And it had these quick whips, which it was there. I don't like how it does that. Like the bid gets, it's not like the bid gets eaten up, but it just, for some reason, you just get these pushes through the bid, even though the bid holds. It's, I don't know what the glitch is, but that's what happened. And then I said, all right, this pushed up. I'm going to try and get a pullback at 261. So I put an order in at 261 here as 261 was holding on the bid, thinking that maybe we get the curl here now as the 9 SMA is starting to push back through, flatten out, and then start to curl. So I put a bid in at 261, and the bid got eaten up. It pushed back up, and I said, all right, maybe this is finally the turn. And then it just started to stall and chop sideways here. And once the 9 SMA looked like it was going to converge bearishly with the 50, I just said, you know what, it's not worth me watching this go to 259, 258. I'm just going to cut it at 260 for a $35 loss. So not upset. Thesis was there. It was a bit extended on the 30 minute. But then again, I mean, you could get that power hour play where volume just comes in and just pushes it. I mean, you got sellers who thought they controlled it here. And then volume really just dried up throughout. I mean, you never got this level of shorts covering. I mean, I can't imagine every single short covered through these 3 bars. So I was really looking for volume to start ramping up aggressively and covering start to squeeze this thing maybe to like 3. I was thinking 275 3, but it started to ramp up, but you just didn't get enough covering to really push it. That being said, going to keep it on my radar for Monday. I really like that daily, and the 4 hour is just beautiful. This steady grind. This is the first pop, the initial pop on the 4 hour. Where the 9 SMA really starts to form a trend, and you get this expansion between the gaps between the SMAs. I think this grinds pre-market, maybe on Monday hits like 288 area and then stalls underneath the 200 SMA and then pushes through during the day. That would be ideal. But yeah, I think 338 is within range next week. So I'm definitely keeping that on my radar. After SLRN, I had UPC, and this one was frustrating. This was up 100% at one point during the day. So I was actually green on this. I think like 50 or $100. Going back to the 30 minute, this was just a nice push. So you had this after hours push and then sideways, holding the 9 SMA. Then you got at 4 a.m. the push and then pull back to the 9 SMA and then push at 8 o'clock, and then it held and it just soaked right off the 9 SMA perfectly. So I was watching this in the morning and I recognized this downtrend here, and I saw this push here, and I was looking at the 5 minute. Yeah, so the 5 minute, this candle closed above the 9 SMA, and I said, all right, this is opening right here just below it. I don't really like that it's opening below it. This one closed above it, and I had bought prior to the close, obviously. But as it was pushing higher and it was breaking, it was holding above the 9 SMA, did I buy the break of this candle, 27.71? No, I bought a little higher than that. I bought 28.25, so around here. I bought right here thinking, all right, this is now holding the 9 SMA. I'm buying a little high, but I'm willing to risk the 9 SMA. It pushed up, pulled back, and then in this candle it just flushed and I cut it. Stayed patient. Recognized that this is one of the leaders and it's still strong, has strength, holding the 9 SMA on the 30 minute. So then I bought the break, the actual break of the downtrend here, which I should have done initially. I should have just waited. I may have had another draw. No, either way, I bought the break of this downtrend as well as the break above the 9 SMA on the 5 minute. So at 28.85, so 28 or 28.5, so right about here, basically at the close. And then here I said, this is strong. I'm gonna add to get to 10,000 shares because I really wanted 10,000 shares on this thing to see if this could push to say 30 or so. And I flubbed it. I really flubbed this one. So I added here 7,500 shares, and I immediately just started scaling out like an idiot. I did I got spooked that this was stalling at this prior high, even though it had broke above it, 29. I know it hadn't broken above it yet. So I got spooked that it was kind of stalling there, and I thought this was going to just flush. So I scaled out of most, and then it pushed higher, and I ended up taking a nice win on this there. And then here, I was so annoyed with myself there that I tried to get the curl back through, and I ended up just flubbing it. There was no real edge on this throughout this chop. If we look at the 5 minute, yeah, I was actually, no, I lied. I saw this soak off the 9 SMA, and I started accumulating some within here, trying to build a position to just bounce right off the 9 SMA, grind along it, and then push higher, and it just never came. And then this one, I bought 10,000 shares, and took what, $3 out of it, $4, $3. No, 30. I lied. I took 30 out of it here. And this was a quick scalp. I was a little hesitant with it. I didn't like that I got this push right here. So I bought 10,000 shares right at the break, 33.2 right here. I bought at the break of these two candle highs, and then just started scaling out just because I didn't like how weak it felt. Volume wasn't coming in. I recognized the volume wasn't coming in as strong as it was over here, and I just said, you know what, I'm just going to start scaling out. So I started scaling out, and then I cut it, and I ended up making $30 on it. So I was down 80. I was down 80 through this pullback here. So I was up 50. I lost 100, or maybe like $1.20. So I was probably up a little more than that. I was down like $1.20, but I was down overall 80, and then made my way higher. So I made back like $30-$40. So that was that. That was just an all-time fail. This is where I really should have capitalized. I mean, volume started to come in a little stronger. This push, soak, push, and then push. I should have recognized that this just had it, and I should have held the 10,000 shares. If I did, I mean, I could have taken out $400 or $500 out of this move right there, instead of being down 44 on this. This was just a beautiful move. Beautiful, beautiful move. So that was UPC. VIGL finally went. And this is something that I've been trying to trade for the past week, this entire week, and it finally pushed. So I bought right at the open as it broke above the high. I did see that 296 was yesterday's pre-market high, and I knew that it probably needed to break that, but I was willing to risk I was willing to risk 289, so the $70. I said I'm going to stay patient and let this just grind along 290 all day. And in hindsight, I probably should have bought more here. And I remember I was watching this and I bought 2,000 shares of my Roth here. And then it pushed and I missed this push. I had it on a side chart and I just remember looking and it was at 3 and I was like, oh, okay, this finally went. So I looked and I saw the volume and I was like, whoa, okay. I mean, 100,000 shares in 5 minutes was solid. Over 100K shares. So this blasted through and I scaled 250 shares. I ideally wanted to see it hold 3, but I was willing to risk back down to like 296 area, which was the prior high. Never pulled back to that, held VWAP, and then started to push higher. And I said, you know what, I'm going to start scaling it a little bit more as this kind of forms this little ascending triangle here. So I added back right here I added 250 shares here, and then it pushed higher to high of day, but there was zero volume, and I got a little nervous thinking this may not have the juice. But I said, you know what, I have a decent entry, 296, my average is low, just hold. And then it started to hold the prior high. I said, let me just take 200 shares additionally. I wanted to build a 2,000 share position, 1,500 to 2,000 share position, but I was buying in 100 share tranches here. And then it pulled back pretty aggressively, but it was holding VWAP and it was still holding this low, this 297. So I said, all right, I'm not really liking this. We're almost at break even after the re-entries here, and my initial entry, but we're gonna hold it. And then a buyer just stepped up and blasted this right up. I sold these 200 shares at 305 at the high of day. I just sold to market when the bid was at 304 and the ask was at 305 and they gave me 305, so I was happy about that. And then it pushed higher and I just sold the rest. I didn't like how this wasn't really that aggressive with the volume after this buyer right here, so I sold the rest. In terms of my Roth, I re-added back here for a potential bounce off of VWAP that never came. In my Roth, I was up significantly more. I ended up having 5,000 share position after re-adding somewhere in here or here. I can't remember. But I was holding 5,000 shares. I scaled out of 2,000 or 3,000, 2,000 through this push up to here. I think I got 308. Let me just look. 312. Yeah, so I bought 2,500 shares down here, sold 500 at three. So I got a phenomenal entry, 291. Sold 500 at 3. Added 3,000 more at 303. It pulled back and I was annoyed. And then it pushed really nicely here. I had 1,000 shares at 312. It blasted right through that. And then once it pulled back really aggressively right here, I did not like how it wasn't holding 3. So I just sold the rest. And yeah, that's frustrating. But overall, I think this is probably still a solid swing. This is still a solid swing. I think this has what it takes to really push through. I mean, it closed above 3, which is great. It's a solid sign, especially with this initial sell-off candle closing or being the high at 3. It closed above that, so I think this is. I probably should have held some because I think this could probably gap up on Monday, but I'll just keep it on my radar for Monday, to try and get a re-entry somewhere, either sub 3 or around 3. Wimmy was another really solid trade for me today. This was a MLGO sympathy play, and I was watching it. I had it on my radar, but it wasn't above the 9 SMA here on the 30 minute, so I don't play anything that's not above the 9 SMA on the 30 minute. But additionally, I don't play anything that is not above the 4-hour dominant candle point of control. And at the time, it wasn't initially. Obviously, it opened down here, and the point of control was all the way up here at 131, 132 area, until volume really started to come in on this thing, and then it formed its own. It ended up being a 4-hour dominant candle based off the criteria that I've compiled. So once it did that, and it formed it became a dominant candle, I started to say, okay, this may actually have some juice to push a little higher. And on the daily, it was 140, 161, I believe, were the levels. High of 140, yeah. And then I believe this was 161, which was the pre-market high of that candle. So I was watching this thing, and I was a little hesitant because, again, the point of control was, the prior point of control on the 4-hour dominant candle was 131. So the high of day was 128, and I was a little nervous that if I buy down here and it pushes to 131 and then just flushes, I'm going to be really pissed at myself. But then I said I'm going to be really pissed at myself if this pushes as a sympathy play and I don't really push it, because MLGO is just so strong today. I think at one point it was up 900%. Just absolute insanity. But so I saw this really nice push back over the 9 SMA, and then it just moved sideways and held. And I saw this soak literally right off of it. It bounced clean off of the 9 SMA there. And then popped over here. And I bought 500 shares at the break of this little 126 base. So I bought 500 at 127. And then as soon as this broke over 128, I slammed 2,000 more shares. I sold 500 at 129 because I was a little hesitant with what 131 would bring if we would see a lot of liquidity at 131, being that it was the prior 4-hour dominant candle point of control. And I didn't like how this was kind of just stalling and moving sideways. This selling pressure right here on this candle I didn't like. But it held the 128 level, so I stayed patient with the other 2,000 shares. And then as this started to push higher, I just started selling. I just started putting sell limits in. And I hit 131, that hit. It held the 9 SMA on the 1 minute and the 5 minute. So as it held on the 1 minute, I had a ton of conviction. And then on the 5 minute additionally, it was holding really nicely. So I just held, and then I just kept selling. I just kept putting sell limits in, and I ended up getting some pretty decent fills. I got the high of day at that point, 138. And then as this broke down, and I didn't like that this hanging man candle, or bear spinning top, I guess. And on the 1 minute, I didn't like that we got this sell-off candle, and then it pushed up and could not re-break 138 there. I did not like that, so I just started to cut more as this kind of started to pull back and the 9 SMA started to fail. So I cut that, and I'm glad I did because this pulled back pretty aggressively. Then it held and formed this nice little ascending triangle here. And I said this might have some more to it. And I ended up breaking even on it, I think, or losing like $10 overall. But I started to re-add here looking for the break of 138. It flushed and then pushed after. It shook out all the weak hands here and then pushed up higher. And they got me. They shook me out. Either way, it failed. It didn't have the strength, and I think that was right about the time that Malgo kind of started to fail as well. So I'm not mad that I stayed away. And I went with smaller size on this. I told myself, okay, if this does break 138, then I'll start to add some size for the push through 140. So I kind of just kept small size, 500 shares, then 1,000 shares. But yeah, so that was that. That was WIMI. And then last but not least was a trade that I probably shouldn't have taken at all. YYAI. Oh, look at that. I went in after hours a little bit. This was a daily setup that I really liked this daily setup. Just this nice push off of all-time lows. And it's just holding the 9 SMA really well. Forming higher highs, higher lows each day. And I had it on my radar today. I saw these 3 initial candles at the open, just really nice lower wicks, holding above 50, but really holding 60, which was prior resistance. Excuse me, which was prior resistance. And I wanted to see the 9 SMA start to curl above, and I think it was curled through at the point at which I had bought. But it was also super light volume. I mean, what was the volume on this today? YYAI was 890,000 shares, so it was super light. So I was looking for the high daybreak. I saw this push through this 666 level. So it pushed through this 659, 660 or 66 level, and I bought the pullback on the next candle. And I just bought small size, saying, okay, I'll get small size and then I'll add more at 666 break, or the high day break, and it just never came. And I was like, you know what, this isn't even worth my time or energy, so I'm just going to cut it. And then I took it off my radar. So that was today. A solid day, mentally a solid day. I felt really comfortable taking trades. I felt really dialed in. A lot of moves were really clean too, which was really nice. So I think it was a combination of all the above. I think I'm kind of getting back out of my head, and I also think that I'm feeling a lot more comfortable, and we're getting a lot of really nice moves, smoother moves. But it felt like today, I mean, obviously Malgo was a black swan in that it was up almost 1,000% today, and it was just a massive short squeeze. But I think we're starting to see a rotation back into small caps. I could be wrong, but this week has felt like there was a little bit more of cleaner moves. Small caps felt smoother, and you could kind of depend on the breaks a little bit more. So really excited about what next week has to bring. We're going to continue to do a lot of studying this weekend. I'm going to have a lot of free time with the wife and daughter sick still and recovering, so it's going to be great to kind of just get in front of the screens and review, and really break down what my weaknesses are and what my strengths are, and continue to find the perfect entries and the setups that I feel most comfortable with. So that was today. Again, up 325.72, so a solid green day, and looking to keep that Momo going next week.